Have you ever really wondered what the universe looked like to someone in the Middle Ages? Well, I can tell you, you can forget about simple maps of the Earth and stars. We're about to dive into a vision from a medieval text that is, well, it's baffling, it's complex, and it looks a whole lot like a giant cosmic egg. So let's get into this and decode one of the strangest visions you'll probably ever encounter. It all starts with this line: a large, round, and shady object. It was like an egg. Sounds simple enough, right? But what's inside this egg is this swirling, chaotic, and deeply symbolic vision of, well, everything. The entire cosmos, humanity, the battle between good and evil. It's an entire worldview, all packed into this one, single, bizarre image. Now, this image here, it isn't a literal drawing of the cosmic egg, but it perfectly captures the world this vision came from. A world where the spiritual and the physical are completely intertwined, where every single image can hold a deeper divine secret. And that's the mindset we need to have to really understand what's coming next. And that is the big question, isn't it? An egg-shaped universe filled with fire and dark globes and storms. I mean, is it just a strange dream, a moment of madness? Or is it something much, much more? Well, the good news is we actually have the key. See, here's the brilliant part. The text doesn't just describe this wild vision, it actually explains it, symbol by symbol. It's basically a detailed guide, a map to a spiritual reality. So we're not just guessing here, we're literally following the author's own instructions on how to read this whole allegory. So, the most important thing to get our heads around is that we are not looking at a physical description of the cosmos. Not at all. We are looking at a spiritual one. Every fire, every layer of darkness, every gust of wind, it's all a stand-in for a much bigger theological idea. Okay, so let's start by breaking down the static structure of this cosmic egg. Think of it like we're learning the basic geography of the spiritual world before we get to, the weather and the wars happening inside of it. So the vision's whole framework is basically built on 4 key components. We've got the outer globe itself, a really powerful reddish fire, a mysterious darker layer, and then, finally, these 3 torches that seem to be holding everything in place. First up, the object itself. The source describes it as being like an egg, narrow at the top, wide in the middle, and kind of compressed at the bottom. It's the container for everything else we're about to see. So what could it possibly represent? And boom, here's our first big reveal. The entire object, the egg itself, is a symbol for God. Its strange shape and its shady nature are meant to represent a power that is, according to the text, totally incomprehensible and mysterious to the human mind. It's the beginning and the end of everything. Now, let's peek inside the globe. The text describes this immense reddish fire, but it's not a destructive one. No, instead, it's a fire that illuminates everything within. And what is this brilliant fire? It's Jesus Christ. It represents the light of burning love that fills the entire world. It's the active, illuminating force of divinity that exists within the incomprehensible mystery of God. And get this, within that fire of divine love, there are 3 torches. And they aren't just floating there. They have a job to do. They're actively holding up the fire, keeping it from collapsing. So these torches, they represent the Word of God, coming down from heaven to help humanity. They're a symbol of divine intervention and guidance, this powerful force that props up the world and offers aid to souls right here on Earth. So, we have the basic structure, but this cosmic egg is not a peaceful place. Now that we understand the layout, we can really dig into the conflict that's raging within it, the battle for the human soul, played out with fire, smoke, and storms. And here's where things get dark. In complete contrast to that brilliant, loving fire of Christ, there's another fire, a gloomy fire, and it's described as being so horrible that the visionary can't even look at it. It's full of terrible sounds and storms and sharp stones. This is the opposition. This gloomy fire, well, it's the devil's influence made real. It represents the absolute worst sins of humanity. We're talking murder, greed, drunkenness. It's the force of pure chaos and destruction, and it's shaking the very foundations of the world. And this conflict is happening everywhere. On one side, you've got elements like pure air, which stands for the unity of faith being spread by strong sermons. And on the other side, you've got the darker layer, which symbolizes the rage of the devil and the shame of human sin. It's this constant cosmic push and pull between these two forces. Even the weather is symbolic in this vision. A wind blowing from the purest of air, that represents true faith spreading through the world. Rain signifies the cleansing of baptism, washing over humanity and offering salvation. Every single element is part of this epic spiritual struggle. Okay, so we've broken down the symbols of the egg, the fires, the air, the storms. What happens when we put it all back together? What is the ultimate message of this bizarre and honestly kind of beautiful vision? The vision paints a very, very clear picture. It shows a universe created and held together by a mysterious, unknowable God. And within that universe, humanity's caught in this constant war between the divine love of Christ and the corrupting influence of the devil. The only way to win? Through the tools provided by the church, things like faith, baptism, and holy words. But the danger of sin is always there, and a divine justice is watching everything. And this final quote from the text it really sums it all up. The whole point of this incredibly complex vision, and in this worldview, the whole point of the universe itself, is to serve as a lesson. It was all created to help humanity understand God and to honor that divine power. So that's what we're left with, a complete symbolic map of a medieval reality. It's a pretty powerful reminder that for centuries, people saw the world not just as a physical place, but as a deeply meaningful story. Which really just leaves us with a final question. If this is their map, what does ours look like? How do we find the symbols and meaning in our own very different modern world?